Hello, my name's Ben here on Sinner Creation, and today we're going to talk about getting started with the Slaves to Darkness Chaos range. So, if you're watching this video, it's likely that you've seen the range Chaos miniatures and thought that you really like the way they look and you're just unsure as where to start. So I've decided to go with Slaves to Darkness today because although there are different factions within Chaos, this is kind of like a canvas or a skeleton you can work off of for your army, where if you find yourself liking particular aspects of Chaos, then you can sort of divert the army in that direction or stick with the Undivided feel. So in terms of the kits and the miniatures, they all follow a similar theme of like the Northern Barbarian look: skulls, horns, spikes, armour covered in like chains and whatnot, and then you've got the mutated demonic steeds and creatures that they ride into battle, the demon tainted weaponry, and the overall dark feel to the army. So with the units' prices, these can vary but are in most cases very typical of most Games Workshop miniatures, as monsters will range between the 30 and 40 mark. Recently they've moved some of the kits into double-sized range with new bases in. So for example, like you've got the Chaos Knights who used to come in boxes of 5 for £22.50 I think, moved into boxes of 10 for 35, so you're saving money in some degree, but you have to spend more and you get more miniatures. So the style of gameplay for Slaves to Darkness is you severely lack any sort of shooting, so you'll be at the mercy of any ranged army, but you make up for this with extreme melee prowess, durability, and arcane magic and abilities. Now, if I was designing an army, the best way I would get started with this is by getting the Get It Started box from Games Workshop. This gets you a Chaos Sorcerer Lord, 5 Chaos Knights, 12 Chaos Warriors, and a chariot. It's a nice blend of medium speed units and high speed units, allowing you to outmaneuver, outthink, and buff your units in equal measure. Now, as for expanding on these, I would recommend more troops in the form of Chaos Marauders, more Chaos Warriors, or, depending on your preference, if you want to move into a particular god, looking at the troops that they have to offer. Like every pitch battle army in Age of Sigmar, you need to focus on your battle line and your leaders first. So the most common battle line unit that you will have access to in your Warriors of Chaos army are, surprisingly, Chaos Warriors. So these guys are expensive points wise, but they are some of the best troops in the game next to the ones that Stormcast have access to. They start in units of 10, they have a moderate move of 5, but they have a 4-up save and 2 wounds on your basic infantry. Now, these have access to a wide variety of different war gear. You can give them 2 hand weapons, which gives them moderate attacks but allows them to reroll to hit. You can give them Chaos Halberds, which means they don't get your reroll bonuses, but they have a longer range in their close combat attacks. Or you can give them a hand weapon and a shield, which means that they have a save against mortal wounds of a 5-up, which makes them substantially more durable. The command things that they have access to is their champions, rather than having +1 attack, have +1 to their hit rolls, which means that they're hitting on 2s with basic hand weapons on your troops. Now, they can also add 1 to their run and charge rolls with access to their musician, and add 1 to their bravery with access to a battle standard. Now, if you field these in units of 20 or more, they get to reroll their save rolls of a 1, making them more durable. So if you want to take a horde of these guys, I'd recommend taking 20 with shields, because it allows you to reroll the saves of both your armour and your 5-up rune shields. The only problem with these units is, as I said before, the cost. So you might want to balance these out in your army with some cheaper units that fill in the taxes of your battle line. So unlike their counterparts in the Chaos Warriors, Chaos Marauders are, well, they don't have a save basically, they only have a 6 up, their bravery is lower, they only have 1 wound, but the benefits you get to this are that they are faster in movement and they are substantially cheaper in points. These unit champions do have +1 attack for being champions, they still gain the bravery and the +1 to run and charge rolls for their command items such as the musician and the standard bearer. They add 1 to their hit rolls if they include 20 or more models. They can carry dark wood shields instead of 2 combat weapons, which gives them a 5+ save, but I don't believe this is worth it because of the rend ability. You might as well focus on taking large units and having a large amount of attacks. I would probably use these as a cheaper way of filling up your battle line. I'd still focus on Chaos Warriors because they're so much better, but maybe 2 units of Chaos Warriors and a unit of Marauders just so that you don't spend all of your points on your basic troops. The goal of every Chaos champion is to eventually reach demonhood, to become immortal and wage war in the name of the gods forevermore. Now you can field one of these people who've already ascended to demonhood in your army called a Demon Prince. Now these guys are the step between monstrous infantry and a giant monster, in that they have a nice amount of wounds and combat ability, but not enough to rampage across the board and be a distraction. Now you have a wide variety of options you can give your Demon Prince, and they gain bonuses dependent on which Chaos God they chose. Now the first thing you get on your Demon Prince is that you have a choice between having 2 sets of Malefic Talons, 1 set of Malefic Talons and an axe, or 1 set of Malefic Talons and a sword. Now each has different abilities, such as the axe is slightly less accurate, but it does more rend and damage, whereas the sword is more accurate but does less rend. The talons are your basic moderate weapon. You can give the Demon Prince wings, which makes it move faster and the ability to fly over units. You have a choice when you first pick your Demon Prince as to what they are dedicated to. Now, if you choose to not dedicate your Demon Prince to a particular god, they gain 1 wound each time they kill any models, and if they kill a hero or a monster, they heal D3 wounds instead. This makes them very durable, allows them to, as long as they stay in combat. The alternative is you pick one of the 4 Chaos Gods and it gains an ability similar to what that god would give its followers. So a Khorne Demon Prince gets +1 to all its hit rolls. This means most Demon Princes are hitting on either 3s or 2s, depending on what weapons they wield. This makes Demon Princes with Demonic Axes very good. Nurgle units increase their save to a 3+ from a 4+. Now this, while alright, can usually be ignored with rend, the bonus, but it can make your Demon Prince more durable. I think you'd be better off sticking with the Undivided Demon Prince if you want your Demon Prince to survive more, as it can heal wounds back it's lost at a higher rate than it can pass these saves. Tzench allows a Demon Prince to cast and unbind a spell per turn, and it knows the 2 basic spells of Arcane Bolt and Mystic Shield. This is really good. It lets you buff the armor save of other units other than the Demon Prince or the Demon Prince if you must. Arcane Bolt allows you to snipe characters, snipe units, get some mortal wounds out on your opponent. And the final Chaos God, Slaanesh, allows you to, when you're piling in, allows you to attack out of sync, which means that when someone tries to attack you, you can immediately go, no, my Demon Prince attacks first, which can sometimes change the tide of combat. The final ability that Chaos Demon Princes have is they can be summoned by wizards. Now, in order to do this, you would have to have spent your points into like a reserve pool at the start of the game in order to summon the Demon Prince, but it's essentially bringing on a reserve unit. So this is done on an 8, and they have to be set up within 16 of the summoner and 9 away from the enemy models. So this would be usually how I deploy my Demon Prince, so it doesn't get shot or outflanked before it's reached where it needs to go. So if you're looking at having a mortal champion of your Chaos army and you want them to still be a melee monster, the best choice you have in Slaves to Darkness is to field them on top of a Manticore, a large lion-like monster with wings that can just tear other units apart. Now, the first model that has access to this is a Chaos Lord on a Manticore, someone who's yet to reach Demonhood but has managed to tame one of these beasts and is using it to increase his melee prowess on the battlefield. Now, like the Demon Prince we spoke about before, this guy has access to choosing a Chaos God prior to the battle. Now, if he chooses Khorne, he is able to pile in 6 inches instead of 3, which means he's more manoeuvrable in the combat phase. You'll be able to get him more likely into an area you need during mass battles, so that can be useful. Like the Demon Prince one before, the Nurgle mark gives him a 3+ save instead of 4+ save. I'd consider taking this on the Chaos Lord over the Demon Prince because you don't have access to the healing that the Demon Prince does, so the extra save would make him more durable than the healing would. If you choose Tzeentch, the model can attempt to unbind a spell as if it was a wizard. While this can be useful, I don't think it's as useful for Slaves to Darkness as it could be, because you still have access to tons of wizards in the form of Tzeentch Demon Princes, Chaos Sorcerer Lords on Manticores. So unless you're doing a Tzeentch themed army, I'd probably steer away from this. The Slaanesh buff that you get for taking that gives you a bravery debuff on enemies within 3 inches of them. Now, this can be phenomenal if you're fighting large units of infantry, especially multiple units, because it just means you get the extra models running away from you. Like the Chaos Warriors we spoke about earlier, this guy can take a Chaos Rune Shield. If he does, this would take away 5 mortal wounds on a 5. The combat attacks you have a choice between are Demonic Blade, Chaos Lance or Chaos Flail. Now, very much like the Demon Prince, there's a choice between accuracy or damage and attack numbers depending on which weapon you pick. You also have a Dagger Fist weapon, which means that each time you make a save roll of a 6, the model that attacked it, if it's within 1 inch, takes a mortal wound. This can deter characters from staying in combat with you, because with the Chaos Rune Shield and the wounds and possibly the extra save from Nurgle, you can endure their attacks while wearing their wounds down with Dagger Fists and your attacks. Chaos Lances are also good because they give you bonus damage on the charge, although they sort of wane out afterwards. Manticores have an ability which means that they're like territorial predators, so you gain bonuses if you're within your army's territory, like +1 hit rolls if it targets a monster, which can be really useful if your opponent's running as fast or faster monster mounts. It means you can intercept them, and if you're in your territory, do a lot more damage than they do. His command ability is that you can pick Chaos Warriors within 15 and they can reroll charge rolls and wound rolls. This makes your army a lot more manoeuvrable. I would run Chaos Lords and Manticores like this alongside cavalry units, chariots and the like, because it just means you'll be able to outflank your opponent. Even if they charge you first, you'll get bonuses for being in your territory. So it's a win-win situation whether you charge into their territory or they attack you in your own. The next character that you can take on top of the Manticore kit is a Chaos Sorcerer Lord. Now, Chaos Sorcerer Lords can pick particular Chaos Gods apart from Khorne, but this doesn't give them any bonus. It just, other than if you wield models that give bonuses to characters with those marks. Now, the Manticore is just as good in combat as it is on the Chaos Lord. It also keeps its Territorial Predator ability, but the benefit with the Chaos Sorcerer Lord is he's more of a utility character. So you keep the melee prowess of the Manticore, but the character on top loses combat ability in lieu of support abilities. So you'll have abilities such as the spells that they have, which are the main two, allowing you to buff people with Mystic Shield or take away wounds with Mortal Wounds on Arcane Bolt, but they also have access to something called Wind of Chaos on a casting value of 7. Now this means that they can wound vast amounts of infantry with Mortal Wounds, so you're more of an anti-infantry mage on a monster, so you can fight infantry and you can fight monsters with your mount, so you're a jack of all trades. Chaos Sorcerer Lords on foot, you lose the melee strength of your Manticore mount, but you also lose the price you paid for it, so they are cheaper for your army. You can take these guys on horseback if you wish, or on foot. I would choose this depending on what the bulk of your army is and who you'd rather they support. So if you want them to support your chariots and your knights, then you'll definitely need to take it on horseback, whereas if you're supporting your foot soldiers, it should be slogging along at the back on foot. Now, they still have the Oracular Visions ability, allowing you to reroll saves to people close by. They still have the Mark of Chaos, but it doesn't do anything for them other than give them bonuses to characters that give bonuses to other people nearby. But they changed their spell to something called Demonic Power, which is a casting value of 5, and you pick a unit with an 18, and that unit can reroll hit rolls, wound rolls, and save rolls of a 1. And I quite like this because it allows you to sort of use Oracular Visions on someone else and give them reroll 1s to save, and then you can cast this on a different unit and give it reroll 1s to save, but also make it good in combat. This is one of the models you get in the starter box, so if you were to take the starter box, it would be really useful for you. You don't really get a mount you can put it on in the box, but I'm sure there's some conversion work you could do on various models in the fantasy range. I would recommend taking at least one in an army just to get you that bonus of having a wizard with the utility spells and the bonus spells. And this guy is one of the best utility mages I've seen, what with having one spell to buff his allies and one ability to buff his allies. One of the combat characters that you can take on foot for Slaves to Darkness is called the Exalted Hero of Chaos. This is someone who's not quite become a Chaos Lord yet and is more out for themselves than regular Chaos Lords, wanting nothing more than personal glory. Now, they play as such by being as durable as Chaos Warriors. They have 5 wounds, however, for being a hero. They have access to Mark to Chaos, but they have a collection of abilities that mean that they're better at fighting things such as heroes and monsters, as it sort of helps them get their own glory with the Chaos Gods. Now, the first ability means that they can pile in an attack twice in the same turn. This will incentivize your opponent to get rid of them before they can pile in an attack a second time. Alternatively, it means that if you get stuck in an infantry unit, you'll be able to do more damage. Hopefully some will run away and you'll spend less time slogging through foot soldiers, and you'll be able to fight more characters and monsters. They get +1 to hit against heroes and monsters, and they can take access to a rune shield, so if you've got characters that dish out mortal wounds, they've got a 5-up save against it. They also have an item called a Thrice Damned Dagger. This means that if they can pick a hero or monster, and he can double the amount of attacks he makes with his Chaos Blades. Now, Chaos Blades are a weird close combat weapon. It's the only one he has access to, but essentially they have d6 attacks and a moderate amount of damage. So I wouldn't rely on this character to hurt your opponent, but it could be a nice story theme piece for the army. I would potentially use him to send him after smaller support characters that your opponent has, such as like wizards and priests that are hiding at the back. You could probably defeat them in combat easily and then move on to supporting other units in close combat. Lords of Chaos are another common unit that you see inside Chaos armies. They're usually the main combat character that people take. Like the Sorcerer Lord on foot, you don't gain the benefits of being on a manticore with a monster mount, but you're cheaper, you'll easily benefit from cover by being hidden. So there's benefits there as to not taking them out. Now, these guys, like the Demon Princes, can take a Mark of Chaos and have a bonus from this other than being part of a aligned army, is that if they're Khorne, they get +1, they get to reroll hits of a 1. If they are Tzeentch, they get to reroll saving rolls of a 1. If they're Slaanesh, they can run and charge in the same turn, and if they're Nurgle, they can reroll wound rolls for 1. They have a demonically possessed Reaper Blade, which is a decent enough close combat weapon, hitting moderately and wounding moderately with a decent amount of attacks and damage and rend even. They also have a Chaos Sword, which it just adds to the attacks. It hasn't really got much rend or damage. They have a hidden piece of equipment called a Reaper Blade, which means that once per battle they can say he'll unleash his Reaper Blade, and if he does so, he makes only 1 attack with his weapon, but rather than the 2 damage you do on your demonic possessed Reaper Blade, you do 2d6 damage. So this could be a finisher attack on a large monster, a named hero, even a war engine that's causing you problems. They also have an ability which, in order to use, you would have to have the points reserved again for a Demon Prince, but if you slay the opposing army's general, you can replace the Chaos Lord with a Demon Prince. Alternatively, if you're feeling evil, you can replace him with a Chaos Spawn, which you'd also have to spend the points for. But this could be useful in that if your character was, say, on 1 wound and he defeated the enemy's general, you could swap him with a Spawn. It wouldn't cost you many points, but it would give you something that had more wounds and be able to still dish out damage during the game. If you're wanting to run a more mobile army or an army on horseback, you can take a Chaos Lord on a demonic mount. Now this is a unit I've run. I really enjoy using it in games. It's a nice little moderate character. It has a nice amount of wounds, a nice amount of durability, and it can dish out quite a good amount of damage. Now, if this character slays a monster or a hero, you roll dice, and on a 2+, it heals D3 wounds, so it makes it more durable if you take this guy and make him like an assassin and go after their characters rather than their units. He can take a Mark of Chaos, which means that he gains an ability depending on which god he picked. Khorne lets him reroll hit rolls of a 1, Nurgle gives him an extra wound to 8 wounds, Tzeentch lets him reroll failed save rolls, and Slaanesh lets him run and charge on the same turn, making him incredibly fast. He can take the Chaos Rune Shield, which is the 5+ save against mortal wounds, and his command ability lets him pick units of Chaos Knights, Chaos Chariots, or Gore Beast Chariots within 15, and they can reroll charges and get +1 to hit. Now, if you want to run a themed army of Chaos Knights, you would have to take nothing but Slaves to Darkness units, so you wouldn't be able to mix the army in with other Chaos armies, such as the Nurgle Rotbringers or the like. But the benefit you get to this is that your cavalry become Battleline, and you can run a really themed army of like marauders on horseback. Now, I find this guy is useful against attacking heroes that are slightly weaker than him, like the 5 wound heroes on foot. You can, especially if he's got Marker Slanesh, you can move really fast across the battlefield, take out little characters, move on to the next one. If cavalry really aren't your thing and you want to have some sort of elite unit that's on foot, the nice choice for you is Chaos Chosen. Now, this would be easy to convert these guys from Chaos Warriors. Alternatively, there's a resin kit that you can choose. Now, these guys have a nice amount of weapons. They're just as durable as the normal warriors, but they're more likely to deal out damage with their Chaos Great Axes. They have access to command stuff, so a champion, a banner, and a musician, which give the same things they do from the Chaos Warriors. They can take a mark of Chaos. Now, if a model from this unit slays an enemy model, you can reroll failed wound rolls for other Slaves to Darkness units within 8. This is really nice. You can make some really nice combos with this. So if you have a large unit chosen, you can put Chaos Lords and Chaos Sorcerer Lords next to them and give out bonuses to your basic troops, sort of making a large, durable, dangerous unit that your opponent has to deal with. I wouldn't recommend taking more than one unit of these guys, just so that your points stay low and you're able to take more of your troops. But what I would do is, whereas they're normally in units of 5, I would take them up to a unit of 10 just so they don't get destroyed immediately. That'll give you a nice 20 wounds to work with. You've got your 4-up save, your Sorcerer Lord can give you rerolls of a 1 if need be. It would just give you a nice army, a nice strong backbone to work around. For those of you who like the idea of running a horseback army, your cheapest unit that you could take on horseback are the Chaos Marauder Horsemen. Now, they have the same command stuff that you can take with the same bonuses as you have on everyone else for Slave to Darknesses, but having a look at their rules, I can see only one decent weapon option that I would recommend taking. Now, they have access to normal axes and flails. They hit moderately on 4s and 4s. If you take the flail, they hit on 5s but wound on 3s. But you have access to something called a Marauder Javelin. Now, this thing is a longer range but less likely to hit weapon, but it can also be thrown. And the idea of taking small 5-man units of these, outflanking your opponent, peppering them with spears so that you can turn the tide of combat, sounds really good to me. I think I'd only ever take the spears even if I was taking larger units, because you have that added shooting attack which you don't have with anything else. The best use of them, I think, is to, as I said before, outflank and pepper units, because then you can outmaneuver your opponent, put them where they need to be. If a combat isn't going the way you want it to, you can shoot them, hopefully do some wounds, turn the tide. These guys come in boxes of 10 now, so if you wanted to fill them, that could give you 2 units of 5 or a whole unit of 10. Depends what your preference is. You could even try it out the different ways. But I'd highly recommend these guys. They look really fun to play, and I think the models would look really good to paint as well. Another unit that you get in your starter box, and this one gives you a choice of 2 different things to assemble it as, are Chaos Chariots or Chaos Gorebeast Chariots. Now, these can be fielded in like units up to 3. I would recommend taking large units if you want to do more devastating charges, or if you like the idea of outmaneuvering people, I would take the smaller 1-man or 1 chariot units, because it just makes you less likely to tie up. The first one, the Chaos Chariot, has an ability called Don't Spare the Lash, which means that you can roll a dice and add that many inches to its move in the movement phase. This is also included in advance if you ever want to. So essentially you're moving the 8 inches that the chariot already has, and you roll 2d6. If you roll a double 6, that's an extra 20-inch move. You can use these guys like I described the Chaos Lord on Demonic Mount, using them to hunt down characters that are on foot that are hiding at the back. You can outmaneuver their infantry and attack them. They can take the Mark of Chaos like all units, and they have an ability called Swift Death, which means that you can add one to their hit and wound rolls in the turn they charged. So if you're taking an army of mounted cavalry and chariots, you're very much going to have an army that's focused around getting the charge, doing as much damage on that turn as possible. You could flee afterwards and then charge back in the following turn, but I would recommend sticking out the combat unless it really doesn't go your way. The other chariot, the Gore-Beast chariot, is slightly more durable, slightly more expensive because the beast on front is stronger. They have a rule called Explosive Brutality, which means that if you charge on 8 or more inches, the Gore-Beast makes double the amount of attacks with its weapons. On the turn it charges, you roll a dice for each enemy model within 2 inches, and on a 6 that unit suffers a mortal wound, and you can still take your Mark of Chaos. So Gore-Beasts personify charging more than the original chariots do. If I was building a set, I could sway either way as to which one I build. I quite like the idea of the Gore-Beast chariot because it's stronger, it's more durable, and you can cause more damage on the charge. But alternatively, the Chaos chariot is faster and is cheaper, so it's down to your preference of gameplay. If you were to build the Gore-Beast chariot, however, you would have the horses that you get in the kit spare, so if you were somehow able to convert the legs and the robe, you could possibly put the Chaos Sorcerer that you get in your kit on the back of one of the horses. Another large and monstrous type unit that you can field in a Slaves to Darkness army is called the Chaos War Shrine. This is like a large demonic mount carried by 2 giant ogre mutants, and the idea of it in game is to throw bonuses onto allies. Now, I was saying before that some units have the ability to take a Mark of Chaos, but they don't get a buff for doing so. They do in the case of these units because they throw buffs to units of that particular deity. Now, this unit has a nice amount of damage in its attacks from the guys riding the shrine to the guys at the bottom. They have, if they get wounded over time, although they have a large amount of wounds, the mount gets slower, the attacks get less frequent, and the bonus that you get from the shrine's buffs lowers in radius. Now, you have an ability called Protection of the Dark Gods. Now this changes dependent on which god you go for. The range of it starts off at 9 inches but lowers the more wounds you take. You roll dice for each mortal model from your army that suffers a wound or a mortal wound whilst within that range, and on a 6 the attack is ignored. So that's really good. It makes your infantry a lot more durable, alongside abilities such as the Chaos Sorcerer Lords. It's going to make your army a lot more difficult to kill. They also have an ability called Favour of the Ruinous Powers. The guy on top of the Shrine Master, can pray to the Chaos Gods for bonuses and boons. You pick a mortal unit within 18 and roll a dice, and on a 3+, that unit gains whichever buff you picked. Now, the one you get if you didn't pick a Chaos God is that the followers can reroll hit rolls and win rolls over 1. So as you can see, this is a common theme with the bonuses. So with people like the Chaos Sorcerer Lords and the Chaos Lords, you'll be throwing rerolls of a 1 in all directions. Your army will practically have it as a passive buff at that point. But if you choose a different god like Khorne allows you to reroll hit rolls over 1 on any unit, but if you pick a Khorne unit, they get to reroll all failed hit rolls. Tzeentch gets to reroll ones of a save, but if they are mortal Tzeentch, they can reroll all failed saves. Nurgle can reroll wound rolls of 1, but if they're mortal Nurgle, they can reroll all wound rolls. And if they're Slaanesh, they can reroll charge rolls and battle shock tests for the unit. And if they're Slaanesh ones, it can reroll the charge, but it doesn't ever need to take battle shock. so you have no way that your guys can run away. All of these are really good. If you're doing Slave to Darkness initially and you haven't decided on what god to do, just stick with the Favour of Chaos one, the one that's undivided. If you end up changing your opinion and going to a different Chaos god later on, you can always just repaint small parts of the model to fit that particular god. So Khorne, just put some red in there, Nurgle, just put some green, and some rust, that sort of thing. Moving on to another unit that you get inside your start collecting box, if you've bought one, is Chaos Knights. So these are really nice models. They're very durable in that they have 3 wounds as opposed to most other cavalry that only have 2, and they probably have better save than most cavalry. They have access to the same command stuff that other units have, certain the same bonuses. Your choices are of whether you take ensorcelled weapons or Chaos Glaives. If you take a Chaos Glaive, you get more damage on the charge, it's like a spear. You always have rune shields, so you always have that 5-up save against mortal wounds. And enemies subtract 1 from their bravery if they're within 3 of Chaos Knights. So I would probably go all out with these guys, take your spears, charge, get stuck in, get that bravery debuff in. You can field it alongside the chariots like the Gore Beast one. Just get all those fear debuffs and charge buffs in there so that you can cause as much damage as quickly as possible, because you don't have access in this army to much shooting other than the Marauder Horsemen, so you want to be getting into the charge as quickly as possible and causing as much damage as you can, so that if you do lose, unfortunately, the combats, then they won't have as much to shoot back at you with. As far as fielding the units in unit size concerned, you get 5 in your start collecting box, and they come in units of 10 now. 3 units of 5 could be good, gives you more manoeuvrability in smaller units. A unit of 10 could be devastating on the charge. The problem you've got is the bases are massive because the models are quite large, so I would recommend units of 5 just so that you've got more manoeuvrability and you're more likely to get all of them into combat. The final unit that you have access to in this army are called Chaos Spawn, who are like failed Chaos Champions who've mutated too much from the gifts that the gods have thrown out and have become like hulking, shrieking monstrosities. The kit for the Chaos Spawn is really nice. For those of you like kit bashing and converting, this gives you so many spare parts as far as mutations are concerned, so you can cover your Chaos Knights or your Chaos Lords in, I don't know, tentacles, spikes, armor plates, whatever you feel like you want your model to look like. As far as attacks and movements concerned, they're very erratic because of the mutations, attacking and moving 2d6. You can take your marks on them, so you can get your bonuses from your War Shrine and the like. And if you roll a double for the amount of attacks they get, they hit and wound on a 3+ instead of a 4+, which is really nice. These guys come in boxes of 2 and are quite durable. If you're doing a speed-driven army that has lots of cavalry, I'd take these guys because you can take them alongside those. They can keep up. While they're not as durable, they can potentially be faster with a 2d6 run. If you're taking a non-cavalry army, you could also take these because they can speed around the sides, lock units in combat, means they're not going to shoot you, and you'll be able to get the vast majority of your infantry into combat with these units not moving. So as a final overview of how the army plays and what I'd recommend to purchase, in your start collecting box, if you bought one, you get a nice diverse amount of units. You'll get in a unit of foot soldiers in the form of Chaos Warriors, you'll get in your Chaos Knights and a chariot, and you also get in a sorcerer who's one of the best utility characters I've found in the game. As far as recommendations to expand on, I would take more Battleline first, and Chaos War Shrines are very good at throwing out buffs around your army. If you find that your Chaos Sorcerer Lord is enough and you don't need more buffs, then spend your points on, say, a Chaos Lord on a Manticore, because then you'll get your combat ability that way. I would take cheaper units only if you need the battle line or whatever it is you need them for, but don't have the points to spend, because Chaos Warriors, Chaos Knights, they're just so durable, so strong, and you can do a lot of damage with these units. The army, as far as Chaos is concerned, can be really nice for new painters and veteran painters, because depending on which god you pick, you've got a different scheme, different themes to which to paint. Same with conversion. Chaos has some of the best kits you can use for kit bashing conversion. Chaos Spawn, as I said before, are amazing for this. The War Shrine is as well, and you can also access other units for this army if you want to purely stand Slaves of Chaos. There's a PDF of some of the older models. You'd have to kit bash and convert them now because they don't sell them anymore, but there's Chaos Banner Bearers in there and the like that you could use to expand your army, give it some more buffs and units. It would be really useful for making your infantry a lot better. So I've been Ben on Sin of Creation. I hope this has been useful for you. Let me know in the comments section if there's any questions you'd like to ask. I will answer them as soon as I can. And if you're interested in starting a Warriors of Chaos army. So I'll see you all in the next video.